There's a place He comes to me. Though I'm blind, He helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see Him face to face.
This is Kurt Kaikkonen, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Waterford, at your neighborhood church. Today on Face to Face, we'll be in the book of Exodus. So grab your Bibles and let's get started. If you want to hear this complete message in its entirety, go to yourneighborhoodchurch.com, where you can download Your Neighborhood Church app at the App Store. And in Genesis 50, you'll read that Joseph's coffin, it was never buried. So his coffin had been laying above ground for about 400 years because Joseph had made the children of Israel promise to take him with them when they returned to the land of Canaan, because he knew that God had promised that. So Joseph here, he will be the only one of the 12 brothers of the 12 sons of Jacob who will be buried in the land of Canaan. All the other 11 brothers, the other heads of the tribes, they're all buried somewhere in Egypt. And this is the same Joseph that not only saved the Hebrews, but Joseph here, he also saved all these Egyptians when they had this world famine. And so you have these 2 million people, and none of them would have been standing there unless God had done this work through Joseph's life. And his body would have been perfectly preserved because he would have been like any other Egyptian mummy, and he would have been done really, really well, just like a pharaoh. And so eventually when they do come up and they bury Joseph in that cave at Machpelah, along with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there will be 2 perfectly preserved mummies in that tomb. The other ones will just be a bunch of bones, but these guys will be perfect mummies because they also did this to his father Jacob before they all went up and buried him in that cave. And this is going to be a great encouragement to the children of Israel as they carry his coffin around with them for the next 40 years. Because when they seen his coffin in the camp, it would remind them of all these promises that God had made to them and how God had been faithful to Joseph. And that would encourage them that God would also be faithful to them. And so now they leave the Succoth, and Succoth, that means encampment. And then they camp at this place called Etham. And nobody knows where Etham was located, but we do know it's on the edge of the wilderness. And then we're told about this pillar of cloud that will go before them. And the word pillar is an ancient Hebrew word, which literally only means something standing. And we read here that this pillar is identified with the angel of the Lord. And occasionally he'll actually speak from that pillar. And this wasn't just like a little pillar, like a column. This was a huge pillar because this pillar gave these people shade in the daytime, or else they wouldn't have been able to endure the sun in the desert. There's not a lot of shade in the desert for them to travel comfortably. So we're talking about a pillar that makes enough shade for about 2 million people. So this is a really, really big pillar. And so now if this cloud moved, they moved. And if the cloud stopped, they waited. If the cloud turned left, they all went left. So it was actually pretty easy to follow because all you really had to do is you had to stay in the shade. And this is how God had led them through the wilderness. But at night, that pillar of cloud turned into a fiery pillar. And that fiery pillar was bright enough for them to travel, for every one of them to see where they were going. So it wasn't just a little light or a small fire. And we're told that this pillar, it never departed from them for that whole 40 years that they were in the wilderness, because God never left them on their own. He never deserted them. And this again here is the same for us. God will never leave us or desert us. And he also gives us light, and he gives us protection in the shade of his presence as we travel on our wilderness journey in the world. So everywhere they went, all the people around them, they would be seeing this huge pillar coming. So it wouldn't probably be really hard to find them. And that's probably part of the reason why all the surrounding nations were greatly afraid of them when they came in their areas. And then we get to chapter 14, and then we hear by Moses the names of these cities where there's to camp. And nobody knows where these cities are today. But what we do know, that anybody who was looking at their situation in the natural, this wouldn't make any sense at all, because this is not even on the way to Canaan. And so here they are, they're in the middle of the wilderness, and all the children of Israel, they all look bewildered, and that's exactly how God wants them to look. Because meanwhile, back in Egypt, sitting in the middle of a ruined economy, you have this Pharaoh, and he can't believe what he did, where he made this huge mistake in letting the Hebrews go. Because now, who's going to build their economy? He had just released Egypt's entire workforce. And so the logical thing for him to do is to go get them back. And now the Pharaoh can't think of any good reason not to go ahead and go get them back. But there were 10 really good reasons not for them to go get Israel back. And they're called the 10 plagues. But now he can't think of a one of them. And now he sees these children of Israel, they're all bewildered. And so he's looking at them like they're a bunch of lost sheep, just wandering around the wilderness. And so he's thinking, this is going to be really easy to round these people up. And God's allowing Pharaoh to believe this, because he's going to lead Pharaoh by God hardening Pharaoh's heart in his own greedy, wicked little heart as God sets his trap for him. Because even after all that the Pharaoh's gone through, the Pharaoh, he was never going to release Israel because Israel was too profitable to them. And so the only way to get Egypt to leave Israel alone was to destroy them, because Egypt would never stop pursuing them. So the only way to do this, for Israel to be able to become a nation under God, was to destroy Egypt, their leadership, and all their armies. Okay, so now Israel, they look like easy prey, and they're up against the Red Sea, and there's no place that they can run. And even all the other Egyptians back in Egypt, they can't seem to remember why they let Israel go. And you have to see here, it's only been about a week since they left. So it's been a week since the Egyptians were burying all of their dead. And so now Pharaoh, he saddles up their chariots, and along with his posse of these 600 other choice chariots. And I had just watched a special on the 10 greatest weapons of the ancient world. And this is put out by the History Channel. The Egyptian chariot was one of these weapons. And it said that their chariots were far more superior than any of the other chariots in the area, because their chariots were very light and they were built for two people. So they would have one person just driving the chariot, and the other person could shoot arrows in any direction. And so in the ancient world, these were true killing machines. And so this would be like having like 600 tanks, the most modern military technology of that day. And then it also says here that they took all their other chariots. And so that would be the non-choice chariots. So these are probably like last year's model, or, a couple used chariots. But Joseph, the historian, he wrote, Pharaoh had commissioned over 50,000 horsemen. And that was along with 200,000 other infantry soldiers. So here you have 250,000 trained men with chariots, and they're all coming against only 600,000 untrained male slaves with no weapons, who are only carrying tents and food and sitting around trying to protect their families. And now you got Israel here, and they're backed up against the Red Sea, and they can't run. And now they're taking their eyes off that pillar that's in front of them, and now they're looking behind them, and all they can see is this 600 chariots plus this insurmountable army of Egyptians, and there's no escape. Where the only way out was the way you came in, and they're blocking the only way out. And so now it says that they cry out to the Lord, which is a good thing. But here they have no confidence in God at all. So now we realize here And because you kind of think about it, you go, well, why would God do this? But what it is these people in this situation are smack in the middle of the perfect will of God for their lives. And you can see that because God led them to this place, and he has led them there on purpose. And this happens in our lives all the time, where we find ourselves in difficult situations. We find ourselves in impossible situations, and we can wonder the same things. And we could say, well, where are you, God? I really thought I was following you. This doesn't seem like your will, but you're in the perfect will of God. Because God's will isn't for you always having the most wonderful job or even the perfect marriage. It's not to have 2 dogs and a cat where you sit on the couch and you eat chocolate bonbons as you watch old movies on Netflix. But it's these difficult places are the places where God shows himself strong, and he leads us to them. God is always aware of exactly where you are. And these are those places where you really can learn how to trust God in your life. And without these trials, you'll never see God coming through for you. It's these types of situations where you get to know him really well. And these are the only places where you really learn to really trust him, because this is where he teaches us. And it's in these times where we learn that God, our God, he carries us through our lives. And so what we're to do is we're to keep our eyes on him. And if we keep our eyes on him, we will see God deliver us over and over again. And so even though Israel cries out to the Lord, they all turn on Moses. And we'll never see Moses. We'll never see this guy ever be able to catch a break from these people. And they're saying things like, hey, we told you to leave us alone. We were better off serving the Egyptians. What? Was there no graves in Egypt? But that's all there was for the Jews in Egypt was graves. The Egyptians didn't like the Jews. They were just going to work them till they died, and then they just bury them. And God, he had already shown himself strong to these people. He's already worked in their behalf. He's already delivered them from this bondage. And they saw all of those 10 plagues. But when things get difficult, and even for us, because we do the same things, we stop believing God and we start to complain. And when you stop believing God, and that's when you start to imagine all the worst case scenarios, and that's when you start reacting to your fears. And so now they're there and they're imagining that they and their children, that they're going to die. And so now they're in this fight or flight mode, but there's nowhere to flee to. And there's another lesson here for us to learn. If you ever know, or anybody ever told you, the Pharaoh, he always represents the devil in the Bible. And so right here, you see God has delivered these people, like just God has delivered us from the bondage of the devil. And he had this really great victory. Well, what you learn is that the devil's always going to come back again, and he's going to attack you. He's going to try to put you back in bondage. But these people, even after seeing God work, fear has a hold of them. And it's really easy here to understand that.
You've been listening to Face to Face. Face to Face on this radio station has been provided by Your Neighborhood Church. If you want to help support Face to Face and put this program on other stations just like yours, you can contact us at yourneighborhoodchurch.com or write Your Neighborhood Church, P.O. Box 500, Romeo, Michigan 48065.
There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
Tune in again tomorrow at this same time as we continue to go through the Bible.